Hi, and welcome back. So, we've talked a lot about the consequences of uncommitted sex and a lot of topics and research around that. Now, we're going to go into something that I'm personally very inspired about, and that has affected me in my life and many of the students that I've spoken to. And that is a framework called five-star sexuality. So this is really a very complete look at the whole person when it comes to sexuality. So let's talk about it. So the first part is the mental aspect of sexuality. Talking, getting to know each other, likes and dislikes. What are your future plans? What do you care about? What are your dreams? There's a very famous researcher named Dr. John Gottman, and he did 10 years of research, and he was able to synthesize it and really capture his research in a book he created. And he went to a publisher, and the publisher was a little bit skeptical and said, "What? Another book on relationships? I don't think so." So Dr. Gottman was trying to convince him, and finally the publisher asked, "Well, why don't you just tell me one thing I can do when I go home today?" So Dr. Gottman is like, "What? I just did 10 years of research. I synthesized it down to a book, and you want me to now give it to you in one point?" And the publisher said, "Yeah, I would." So Dr. Gottman said, "Go home and ask your wife what are the dreams she wanted to do but never had a chance to do? And what does she want to do with her life? And what can you do with her today and start it right away?" Well, anyway, the next day, the publisher came back, called Dr. Gottman, and said, "Hey, we're publishing that book." Now, what do you think happened in that house when his wife heard from her husband that he really cared about what she wanted to do? And for her, that meant, "You care about me." So in their marriage, it really made a difference. And why? Because you care about what I care about. It's the mental aspect of sexuality. Very important. The next one is emotional. Big time important. Your feelings, your heart. You truly care about someone's long-term relationship. You're going to care about how they feel. Here is two pictures of Koichi and Laurel Nakai, and they waited until they got married to share not only their sexual relationship, but also deeply their emotions. And really, they have developed such a special relationship over all these years. I still know this couple to this day. And the emotional part of a relationship is very important because of the bonding that takes place when we get vulnerable with each other. We share our likes, not only our likes, but we share what's important to us and how we feel. Maybe we share something vulnerable that we wouldn't share with anyone else, but we share with our spouse, our committed married partner. And what happens is that there is a mental bond that takes place. There's another researcher called Dr. Sue Johnson. She wrote a very amazing book called Hold Me Tight. And in this book, one of the many points she found is that the brain is wired for monogamy. In other words, for one partner and for a married relationship. And one way to do that is she has step-by-step process of how you can get to the point with your married partner to share those intimate things. And what she found was when you, number one, share those intimate feelings and vulnerabilities with each other, and most importantly, when your committed partner catches you and accepts you for who you are and who you're not, that is when the genesis of love really blossoms and takes place. And it's just an amazing a concept that she has brought to life and really demystified love in many ways through us understanding the emotional aspect to sexuality. Hugely important. The next one is something that people usually don't think about, and that is social. Well, what does that mean? Well, in Laurel and Koichi's family, they got together. And when you really get involved with someone, Don't you want to be part of the whole family? I know, because in my case, when I met my my at that time fiance, beforehand I met with her father, and I very respectfully and politely asked him, uh, can I marry your daughter? And I tried the best I could to be, respectful and loving, and uh, showing how much I'm committed. And I said, from years from now, I'm going to take care of your girl. And he nodded his head. And the next day, he brought me to work and introduced me to all his friends and coworkers as his son-in-law. Now, why do I share this story? Because from there, I got to know the whole extended family. My wife got to know her, and it creates a couple in the context of a family and even a tribe, where there's a whole lot of people that have that feeling of family and closeness. And you can share a lot of good times together. I know both sides of our families love to eat, and so we have big barbecues where we all socialize together. But also, quite naturally, there's ups and downs in marriages. And it's a normal thing. Everyone goes through it. The great thing about the social aspect of sexuality is I can get support from my in-laws. My wife can get support from my parents. And by doing that, it creates stability in a relationship. It's a really wonderful thing. And it's something that people usually don't think about. It's a big deal. These social aspects. Why is this important? Because to really complete a man and woman relationship, it's important to really be part of each other's family, that we feel that we're one. Then, number 4, there's the moral and spiritual. Now, this may be religious, it may not be religious, but the important thing here is how I view the world and how my spouse views the world. It's so important that, we're on the same page and that's congruent is to a good degree, because how do we want to raise kids? What are the values and the beliefs that we feel are important when we relate to others and we raise up our children in our marriage relationship? So this moral spiritual is really like in a way, it's kind of like a basement that really holds up a house. Because also, in the good times and the challenging times, that's the bedrock that can bring us through those times and really get close to each other. And then finally, number 5, and that is physical attraction, right? So this feeling of attraction for each other to do what? To create a child. It's an epic thing to create a child. I know it's been happening for thousands and thousands of years. I have 4 children myself, and boy, it was just something extraordinary. And to share my DNA with another person and to create a life. And as beautiful it is, it takes a lot of responsibility to be a parent. Not only that, the children are also happier and most likely be more happier and stable in the context of a husband and wife being together. Of course, we know there's a lot of situations out there, but it's most optimal and best in that context. Also, what sex does is a sexual act is a way to celebrate all the other 4 aspects of sexuality. How I feel, my moral values in the context of my family, my mental and ideas, right? Then the physical act becomes the expression of how all those things. So then sex is not just something that's stimulating, which of course it is, but is an expression of love. And that's so important. And, with 5-star sexuality, why settle just for 1 or even 2 when you can really have all 5? Don't you think? Isn't it better to have all 5? I really think it is, because with all 5, it encompasses the whole person. and that whole person's where they feel, where they live, like who they're living with, all these things as a family all come together. And what does it do for you and your life? Well, what it does is it creates a depth and almost like a 3D depth of relatedness and to be in love in the context of a committed relationship. And just like investing into an education, get you into college and get you a good job, or investing into a business, right? All these things that we invest into, we do that to put intentionality into things that are very, very important, right? Which is like our careers. But what's even more important than our careers? It's actually our relationships that are the most important things, because we're beings that bond. And when we do not bond, then a lot of kind of craziness happens in life. So it's so important to do that. And this, for me, this 5-star framework really helped me in my life in looking at my relationship and valuing it in a whole new way. You know, is love just a feeling? Well, it's natural for all of us to want to find someone to share our lives with. Hey, that's a beautiful, incredible thing. But there's a lot of confusion about, what does it really mean to love somebody? I mean, people say, I love you, but that could mean many things, right? For example, really, I'd like to invite you to think of an immature way if love is just all about me, right? Nothing to do with someone else. Being with somebody else, it's really graceful, and it's up to us to really care for someone else and to create this relationship and this give and take. Also, to be conditional. I'll only do this for you, if you do this for me, right? So I'm only thinking about myself, and I'm only, I will do this for you if you do this for me, or being conditional. Here's a big one. Not being your word. Changeable. Well, I feel this way today, and I'm not feeling it today, so I don't want to do it, right? And not being your word. And your word is when you get married, you say, I promise to love forever. And that's when you feel, sometimes you feel it and sometimes you don't. And when you don't, that's when you really create it. Also, immature is being resentful, holding a grudge. And why do we do this? Sometimes we have this insatiable appetite to be right rather than to be happy. And we can hold on to a grudge and be resentful. This is immature, right? Unethical. What does ethical mean? It means to abide by the consensus and the moral code of a group, right? And so immature is like not respecting that and just thinking of myself and doing it my way, right? And not thinking and loving and respecting, ethical understanding, right? Opposed to being mature, unselfish, where you're just excited to give. And the most important thing with giving is that you don't calculate. Because when you calculate, that's immature, right? So you just give and you forget, and you give and forget, right? And then because you give and forget, you just get excited about giving. You're not measuring it. Also, unconditional. You don't balance out, hey, I did this for you and now you got to do this for me, right? Unconditional means I give and I'm not balancing it out. I just enjoying to give. Also, opposite of changeable is, of course, unchanging. I gave my word and I'm going to be it. I'm going to do it. And I'm going to receive the benefits of having a good relationship, to be unchanging. Also, able to forgive. This is a big, big, big one. Because oftentimes when we feel we're mad at someone, many times it's really stimulating something in myself, right? Or sometimes we want to take our own pain and discharge it to someone else, blame them. Or even if someone else did something wrong, our job on the planet is to really be able to forgive. Not like I'm the goodie and you're the baddie, but to see the greatness in a person and who they really are. Because when they're acting mad and they do silly things, that can get us upset or get us hurt, many times what is happening is they're just trying to protect themselves. So when we see past that, we're able to forgive. It's a huge part of relating and being mature and ethical, expressing and practicing and with our actions to really respect the ethical and moral values of the group we're in. Okay? So we got to be a bit honest here. You have to ask yourself a real honest question. And that is this really in the best long-term interest of the one I love? We've got to be a little bit honest here, right? And if we're not willing to ask this question to ourselves, we really can't say that I love somebody. And it's important to be honest about that. And because when we're honest about it, then we can be authentic when it comes to love. Okay? So if you think about it, here's another way to think about it. Can someone love you if they don't care about your future? Not really, right? And can someone love you even if they don't care about their own future? Indeed, it's something to think about. And I think you know the answer, right? And that's why, for me in my life, I really chose to wait until I got married. Now, I had a time period where I was sexually involved, but then I saw, well, love is a really beautiful thing and it can cause a lot of hurt. So I decided, you know what? In a way, I claimed a second virginity. And I waited quite a few years until I got engaged, until I got married. And when I look back, it was definitely a tough thing to do. But you know what? I never regretted, and people in general never regret the work it takes to have something that's so important. What could be more important than having a committed relationship, someone that you can love and someone can love you back, and that you know you're going to be there for each other and they can raise children in that kind of environment? For me, that's definitely a life worth living, and that's very compelling. Thank you.